Here is the agenda today. First, we'll introduce the imagined community, and then we'll introduce the definition, examples, and how it works of the Photoshop for democracy. Last of all, we'll combine these two texts and explain the relationship of these two texts. Hello everyone, welcome to the extra tutorial section. So today we are going to present Imagined Community and Photoshop for Democracy.
So what are the meanings of the two concepts and what is the relationship between them? In today's presentation, we will talk about these questions. Firstly, let's have an insight on the imaged community. Originally, the concept was developed by Benedict Anderson to explain the formation of nation-states and the following ideology of nationalism. He attributes the origin of nation-states to the emergence of print capitalism. To maximize the circulation of print works, the capitalists chose to print them in local languages instead of some high-class language such as Latin at that time, so the people can use their own familiar local dialects to communicate ideas with each other on paper, and of course, they can easily understand each other. As a result, a common discourse was established. Therefore, within this framework, a group came into being. That is what we call nation-states. Due to the sense of national identity was formed around their national print languages, but not any face-to-face communication. Thus, Anderson describes this nation as a socially constructed community imaged by people who perceive themselves as a part of that group. The following ideology of nationalism, a feeling that you are a part of some nation, came out of not only the language reasons, but also the collapse of privileges. The superior language Latin, churches, and king's power were all declining or abolished. As a result, with a sense of nationalism and the limited imagination of the common community, people had a great willingness to devote themselves to their nations. From this perspective, Anderson argues that the ideology of imaged community was created with political and economic purposes. So, the imaged community that is coming from popularization of language, the collapse of power, and political and economic purposes. What are the similarities it shares with Photoshop for democracy? So, what is Photoshop for democracy firstly? What we can get from a combination of Photoshop and democracy? Well, here is it. A suitcase and a comparison of two political figures and cartoon characters. As we can see, when new technology, Photoshop, is applied into the political realm, we seem to have the tools and the power to deconstruct the serious politics and democratically to make fun of these superior political figures. In this process, as the author Henry Jenkins states, the participatory characteristics of popular culture makes government and such kind of political activities participatory too. That is what we call in Chinese 政治恶搞, 经济恶搞. Henry said, this interesting behavior not only shares a good love, but also helps the people exchange their thoughts happily and freely with each other. To illustrate this phenomenon, Henry takes the organization True Majority as an example. Here is a video made by the organization during the 2004 American presidential election.
Thursday, back in the boardroom, someone's going home for a giant mistake.
Who chose this stupid concept? You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
An all-new apprentice.
So, it showed that the then President George Bush was fired by Donald Trump. He acted as an anchor in a talk show at that time. I thought the video maker should have never predicted that 12 years later, Trump was elected as president. So, the goal of the fun video of the political organization True Majority is very simple: to encourage voter participation in the 2004 election. And this Photoshop of democracy approach is not exclusive to the only one organization. Instead, in the 21st century, as the characteristics of American politics have changed from bombastic stamp speaking to a way that is more affectionate to the public, Photoshop for democracy is conducted by the right-wing forces, various political groups, and the public across the country. Under this context, the discussion of this participatory political culture is quite meaningful.
From these examples, we conclude this phenomenon as Photoshop of democracy, the theme of this article, which means we are drawing on popular culture to make our political points. So, how do the popular culture shape our political view? First of all, with the development of technology, the way we understand political issues change, from news broadcasts to political comedies, from traditional newspaper to lifestyle tablets, and participate in political activities through social medias instead of getting out to the streets and joining rallies. Just like the reform of arts, politicians gain humanity and politics become close to normal people, especially for the young. They gain more confidence and chance to speak out their opinions, which is what they didn't dare to do before. Take what happened in America as an example. Young people do not buy president candidates' bullshit, but accept the new image of democracy, which is shown by entertaining political programs. Young media consumers initially get more political campaign information from comedy shows like Saturday Night Live than newscasts. TV stations like Comedy Central inject more political information in entertaining programs to influence them indirectly and involve the young voters in political issues. However, Donald Green thinks this kind of indirect influence is overestimated, because he holds an idea that the young will only be influenced by grassroots efforts and personal communication, while these programs are still part of those celebrity campaigns. However, though released by some celebrities originally, they do attract the young to notice, discuss, and spread them. Through these important steps in marketing campaign, they can shape the view of numbers of young voters who had no stance before, though they cannot change those who already chose stance. Furthermore, they attract the young to make videos and share their political views themselves, developing into new forms of political participation. Photoshop for democracy is actually a process of creating imagined community and involving the young in this nation. Through targeting the young with medias linking politics and popular culture together, they achieve the popularization of political programs and make the young be informed and call for their reaction, which increase their political engagement and civic responsibility. These reactions are kinds of collapse of power and gathering the young together for political purpose. Therefore, the imagined community, nation, is formed because of their belongingness. Here are all for today's presentation. And here is the question we want you to think if you have time and you can give us some response on that question. It is about the debate mentioned above. Do you think this media's linking popular culture and politics together is for democracy or for propaganda, which is against democracy in some way? So, here is all the presentation today. Thank you
Thank you
for
very much.
listening.
Bye-bye.